Hi everyone, this is Jim. This video is going to be uploaded on Christmas Day, so I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Hope you enjoy this little Blitz miniature, and even if you don't celebrate Christmas, hope you're having a good day. Let's get going. I started off with the d4 in this game. My opponent went knight f6. I go c4, and of course black has many choices here, going into a Nimzo Indian, a King's Indian, Queen's Indian, Binko gambits, all kinds of things can be played here. But my opponent plays e5, the Budapest gambit. So it's an interesting gambit. Probably best to go ahead and take that pawn. It looks like a free pawn, but actually in most variations, black manages to get the pawn back. And that's the line I go for. It allows that. So he plays knight g4, threatening to take back there immediately. And I play knight f3, defending it. The other line, which is slightly more popular, is bishop to f4. And in this bishop f4 line, you can actually hold on to that pawn. Although if you hold on to it to the bitter end, you suffer some pawn damage over on the queen side after this bishop comes out with a check. So it's not entirely clear if it's worthwhile holding on to the pawn. At least black has some compensation. So the way I play it is to allow black to take the pawn back after a few moves. He doesn't grab it right away. You hold on to the pawn for a little bit, hoping that black will have to waste some moves to get the pawn back and just try and get some kind of development advantage. That's the idea of playing this way. So knight f3, defending the pawn for a moment. Bishop c5 with a threat on f2, so you have to respect that and play e3. Now knight c6, and now black can really take that pawn back at any time, and white just continues developing. This is still actually the main line. And let's see, he castles here. He doesn't take back right away. I go bishop e2. I mean, that pawn is not going anywhere, and with my knight on f3 blocking the f-pawn, I can't hope to defend it, even if I was inclined to. So he continues to pile up on that poor pawn. It's now got 3 attackers and only 1 defender. I castle, and then finally he takes back with the knight. And like I said, this is the main line, or the main line after I play knight f3. So I go ahead and take here. That's also the main move. It turns out that this is actually a bit of an annoying piece here, and the fact that it can always take on f3 with check gives it an escape square, and so it's hard to get pressure on it. So after the exchange, he still has this knight on e5, but now you have ideas of harassing it. You can, for one thing, you can play the move f4 to chase it away, but even if you go after it with pieces and it has to move, at least it doesn't have this knight takes f3 with check, because there's no piece there for it to take. So right here, it's my turn to move, and I played a rare move. The main move is b3, and I just wanted to show this continuation. Actually, I have been playing it by ear for a couple of moves now, so I wasn't even aware we were still in the main line at this point. I was just improvising over the board. But b3 is the main line, after which black plays a5, bishop b2, a normal developing move. That's something I would have maybe played. And now rook a6. I just wanted to show this idea. It's kind of interesting. And there are different responses for white here, but the threat is that this rook can just swing across to any of these squares on the king side and just go after an attack against your king. So it's actually a very fast attack, and you have to be a bit careful here. One suggestion for white is to play the move queen d5 right away. With the queen on d5, you're threatening this loose bishop. The knight is not yet loose, but maybe about to become loose. Say, if you move this knight with tempo, you could move this knight with tempo because you would gain something on the knight. The knight would be under threat, I mean. So you're kind of hoping to induce the move d6, which would block in this rook and then make this scheme of development a bit questionable. But after queen d5, black can retreat the bishop back to a7, still keeping this this row free for the rook to swing across. And well, let's imagine, let's put that position on the board. Queen d5, bishop a7. you have gained a little something here. First of all, your queen is out, and it's defending some squares over here on the king side. Secondly, this bishop has been pushed back, so it's only on one diagonal, and this looks like a pretty sturdy point on the diagonal at this point, at this moment in the game. So so it should be pretty solid for white, and you just need to deal with these threats as they arise from this point. But anyway, black does get some interesting play. And after the rook swings across, then black can move the d-pawn and develop the light-squared bishop as well. It's just a little funny at this point that white has all his pieces out, and black still has this bishop that is locked in behind the pawn chain. But black has an active position, and you know, I'm not saying black is better here. Probably white is still better, but you have to be careful. So it is interesting. It's an interesting gambit for black, I guess, is my point. Anyway, I went with a3. My plan is to play b4 and kick that bishop back. And he went a6. And actually, even here, a5 is still the recommended move in the opening book. And also the chess engine likes it, with the same idea of just being able to bring that rook out to a6. Let's see, but he played a6. I go b4, kicking the bishop. Bishop drops back to a7. And now I go bishop b2. So kind of a similar plan of development, but he never managed to get his rook out. The chess engine still thinks that black is doing okay here. So there's nothing really that he's done wrong. He should still, at this point, just play d6. There's no problem with d6. It's not blocking in anything, and it's opening up the diagonal for this light-squared bishop to come out. So that would be best play for black, and he would have a playable position. But instead he played c6. So c6 is part of a plan that black has here. It's 3 moves in a row that black makes that are part of the same plan. And each one of these moves is rated by the chess engine as a mistake. I guess it's kind of like, well, this often happens in Blitz, where one side will kind of just pursue their plan and ignore what the other guy is doing and just assume that their attack is going to get there first. But it's just not true in this case. So, in fact, after c6, I really wasn't even sure what black's plan was. You might want to, if you want to think about it, try and figure out what the heck black is thinking here. But I just played the most natural move, and turns out to be the best move. Just playing c5, shutting in this bishop, and trying to lock down on these dark squares here. Why not? And his next move, queen c7, also part of the same plan, is also rated by the chess engine as a mistake. The best move, actually, by the chess engine, which sort of indicates why c6, the earlier move, was a mistake. The chess engine is already recommending that black needs to ditch a pawn in order to develop. So d5. C takes d6. He can't actually get this pawn back very easily, but he can get his pieces out now. He can play, say, queen h4, you know, looking at my king side. This is kind of set up for a king side attack, the way black has been playing, so this makes sense. Let's see, knight a4, probably to bring the knight over here and help this pawn come forward. Knight to g4, the threat of mate here. Bishop takes, and queen to d3. And so he managed to get his pieces out. This bishop can come around and put some pressure on the pawn, and also maybe, not there, maybe get something going on that dark squared diagonal. So, but black is a pawn down and doesn't really have enough compensation for the pawn. And notice that I also have a good bishop on a dark squared diagonal, and black's king doesn't have a lot of pieces around it. So, so definitely white is just a pawn up at this point. But that is best play according to the chess engine. So already it wants to just give material back. Instead, he continued with his plan. So this is the second move in his plan. The first move was c6. The second move was queen c7. So that's another mistake. He needed to play d5 there. So I go queen to d4. So this, I think, is a good move. It's setting up this battery here. And it's also maybe looking to swing the queen over to the king side. Well, not to that square because the knight's guarding that square, but there may be squares that the queen can hit over here. And it's just a good centralizing move for the queen, getting the queen off the back rank and connecting the rook. So a multi-purpose move. And now the final move in Black's plan is bishop to b8. And now we can see what he's planning, or had been planning all along. So he moved this pawn out of the way so he'd get his queen to c7. And then he put the bishop here. And now he's set up for a checkmate. But, well, the checkmate can be parried. And in fact, after this move, after bishop b8, it's pretty much a forced win for white. The recommended move here was f6, because I also have some threats along the dark squared diagonal, and Black needs to do something about that. So, but that would still be better for white. Anyway, after bishop b8, this is just a forced win, or pretty much a forced win for white. So what is the best move in this position? What would you play here? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. I found the best move this time, and the best move here is f4. So I just want to clear this diagonal, chase that knight away, and start to make some threats against the black king. And at the same time, f4 also shuts down this diagonal. So it actually is a very valuable and multi-purpose move. And I have to say, against the Budapest gambit, this f4 move is often a good idea, even when there's not an immediate tactical justification, and all you're doing is chasing the knight away. Sometimes it's still a valuable thing to do. You do have to worry a bit about the backwards e-pawn in some situations, but often it's a good idea and something you should always be thinking about if you're playing against the Budapest gambit. Okay, so what should Black do here? Actually, the chess engine recommends the move d5 once again. It's so desperate to get its pieces into the game that it's willing to just give up a piece here, and it thinks that's the best move. So anyway, that's not a very human way to play, but basically everything loses, and that just loses more slowly by giving up a piece. So anyway, he played knight to g6, and now there's a nice winning continuation here, a strictly tactical move. If you want to see if you can spot the best move here. Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away now. There are actually several good moves here, but the two best moves are either knight to d5 or knight to b5. And it's a very simple idea. You're just unmasking a mate threat. When that knight moves, you've got a mate threat on g7 with the queen and the bishop. And at the same time, you're hitting Black's queen. So it's sort of the most forcing continuation and really just the strongest move. I went knight to b5. But like I said, they're equal. Let's see. He went queen to e5. So he could have resigned at this point, but he played on. He actually had an idea here. So I took the queen, and he took back with the bishop. So that was his idea with knight to g6. He could actually support a bishop coming to this square and defending along that diagonal. So I just dropped the queen back, and he traded here on b2 and took on e3. I suppose that was the best he could come up with at this point. Let's see. But my knight was hanging here. He probably should have taken the knight rather than take the pawn. But anyway, that's the way he played it. So I just played knight to d6, and he resigned. But anyway, it was losing in any case, so the resignation was not too soon. In this position, I'm a whole queen up. If he had taken the knight, I would be a queen for a knight up, and maybe a couple of pawns, but that's still an overwhelming advantage. So anyway, that was a nice little game, a fun miniature, and well, it's notable for one of my games. One of the things that's nice about these miniatures is sometimes they're short enough that I don't make any mistakes. So I don't think White made any real mistakes in this game. I think if we go back to this point where I played a3 instead of b3, it's not the strongest move there, but I wouldn't necessarily classify that as a mistake. It still keeps some kind of edge for white. So anyway, let's go back to the final position here where he resigned. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and hope you're having a happy day today, and I will see you soon. Bye.